Disclaimer. Chat GPT is simply a tool for gathering information. It is not the source of all truth, nor should anyone treat it as such. If a person wants to learn something, the most accurate way is to do the hard work for themselves. That being said, this podcast utilizes Chat GPT as an overall aim to stir conversation and promote independent investigation, starting with the Word of God, aka the Bible.
How you doing? What's going on?
Yeah, what's up, dude?
Oh, I got kicked out of another school.
Another school?
Got kicked.
Again?
I can't find the right school for me.
You can't find the right school? Listen to us. Street Church Academy's a different school. We use the Bible as our main tool. It's true, we know it's a different kind of place, but you should also know you're saved by God's grace. People used to come, said our music wasn't nice, but now we started rapping about Jesus Christ. When you come to SEA on your very first arrival, you will study all about that book called the Bible, like Matt, Mark, and a homeboy named John. Learn about the Bible can be lots of fun for all the people who think they'll make it on the street.
Let me tell you something, you just got beat.
Any punk can push drugs or rob a newsstand, but to accept Jesus Christ,
And that's a real man.
you can slap me on the face, even call me a freak, but you know this Puerto Rican will turn the other cheek. That's what a Christian is all about. You have two choices, so take the right route. I was in your shoes at one time. That's why I sat down and wrote this rhyme, just to let you know you're not alone. Cause me and Big D are on the microphone. We had the same problems you went through. Listen to me, homeboy, this is true. Our time is short and we have to go, but we just came to let you know he is knocking at the door to your heart. So let him come in and make a brand new start.
People don't understand me. They hand me a full-blown microphone and say, can you do what the others do? Rap like the brothers, no lies or disguise. No one to cover you. Suckers try to daze and crazy cold amaze me. I'm not worried, they don't even faze me. Holding the mic like little boys to the toys and talking the noise, it ain't nothing but poison.
Before I started living for Jesus, rap and hip hop, that was a very heavy influence on my life. I was a little different than the rest, I'd say, because I like more of the old school flavor, while most people like listening to music of the millennium, I was stuck in the 90s. I like 90s, like Kid and Play and all of these other artists that not many people really paid attention to anymore. And this spanned from soft hip hop to even hardcore underground rap that many people don't know about. This guy named Tommy Wright III and Spice One, like it's very, very hardcore 90s rap. And I would even sometimes dress the part. I'd say rap and hip hop was a very big influence on my early walk with the Lord, though, because the thing is, the person that discipled me, who brought me to Jesus and actually told me more about him, was actually a girl from South Carolina. And then this girl, I would Skype with her a lot. She was around my age, I was in my 20s, early 20s, and she shared a lot of different resources to me that had Christian spoken word. And I thought it was really cool. I'm like, wow, Christians can actually do this. I thought they were all about the hymns and the singing, And she shared with me this one ministry page called p4cm.com. I looked it up. It's not there no more, unfortunately. But P4CM stands for Passion for Christ Movement. And it's this site that had like this urbanist feel to it, where it was about Christians and about bringing hip hop and rap into the industry and how you can use that to be actually a good evangelist. And I thought it was a pretty cool site. Now, me being new to the faith and following Jesus, it was really foreign to me that I could bring in my background of hip hop and rap and my love for that into this newfound faith for Jesus, this new love of Jesus. So the lady that brought me in to the faith, like I said, the one that discipled me, she actually invited me to a conference in Chicago. Many of you may know about it. It's called Legacy Conference, and this was in 2010. And I tell you what, I have a funny story. When I went to the conference, I had no clue who these people were. Again, I'm coming fresh off the streets, street rap and all of this. I don't know anybody in the Christian field who does this stuff. And I remember when I met Lecrae, I was walking in the hallway and they said, "Oh yeah, that's Lecrae." And I'm looking over like, who's Lecrae? Like, who's this guy, right? But yeah, he was over there. He was in the lobby. He was sitting on some stairs. He funny story. This couple was walking by, and Lecrae pretty much warned the guy or said something to the guy about, hey, that he hopes he's acting right, well, for lack of a better word, that he wasn't really fornicating with the woman, whoever it is that he was addressing. And so I'm like, okay, that's Lecrae. Interesting. And then at the conference, they had several instances where they had different artists come up and showcase their talents. And that's when I got acclimated to people like Trip Lee, this guy named Shaolin, this guy named Tadashi, and some others. I thought their music was pretty good. They were preaching while they were rapping. I thought that was pretty cool. Like, wow, who could do that? And so I started to fall in love with Christian rap. Like, wow, this is actually possible. So they would sell their CDs at the conference, and I bought their CDs. And it got me much inspired to share Jesus with the urban community, because I grew up in an urban environment. So I was really bold. I would go out there, blast the music in my car, drive out to the hood, and just start preaching and start sharing Jesus, with their lyrics on my mind and everything. And it was all Christian stuff. I even got inspired myself to do a couple of mixtapes on my own. I got one here I want to play for you guys. This is one that I did where I was remixing Tupac's Trapped song, to a Christian twist. So check it out.
You know it's got me trapped, this sin has got me guilty. Maybe I should check myself, I'm feeling kinda filthy. Trapped in this way of life, nothing but pain and strife. And God says, son, you might just die tonight.
I also have another one that I did for Roscoe Dash. For those who remember who Roscoe Dash was, he's the guy that had this famous song, Show Out. And so here's how I remixed that one. So yeah, I had this time in my life where I was actually doing a lot of different songs myself on my MacBook laptop and just making all these songs. Unfortunately, I cannot share a link to the mixtapes because it's been so long ago, and the site that I uploaded them to, it shut down too. And I don't have any backups. So, but I did find those 2 songs on YouTube that I did upload, and I'm thankful I did that. So I went back to college my senior year. I got born again. Going into my senior, that summer of that senior year, I would say. So, I at least turned to God, I would say. I repented from my sins. When I went back to college that senior year, I was a totally different person. And I started immediately looking for the brothers and sisters in Christ on campus that I can share, that I can, relate to and have friendship with. And I met some brothers who shared the same heart I had for Christian rap. And we decided, let's throw a Christian rap concert on our campus. Here you see a snippet of a newspaper ad, of the campus newspaper, of us, I'm doing the concert and whatnot. And it was the first ever that was ever done. And it was very nerve wracking because that school was very liberal. About religion and everything was not something that was primary at that school at all. But they allowed us to do it, thank God, and it was a beautiful time. And the brothers that I was meeting, they were introducing me to other artists that I even liked even more, than who I first knew, And to be honest, right now, as a side note, I'm actually like a lot of music from the new artists, the ones that are young. They're very good. They're very good. People like Shondi and MTM Isaiah, like things are getting a lot better, especially doctrinally regarding what they're rapping about. And so I'm actually encouraged about what's going on now. But regarding Danny Boy, this is what this episode is about. Danny Boy was somebody that I actually discovered when I was just had these questions in my mind. Because again, like I said, I liked a lot of old school stuff, and a lot of the artists that I was introduced to were more new school, new flavor, new music beats, all these things. But I like the old simple beats, like, the 80s beats, the 90s beats, the hip hop beats, right? So I thought to myself, I said, are there any like legacy artists that are Christian rap artists in the 90s or even earlier? You know, because again, I had no clue about this whole field at all. And that's when I came across Danny D-Boy. And when I discovered him, I thought that one of his songs was very impactful, Planting a Seed. I was like, wow, you know, I have the same heart for sharing my faith and planting the seed in people's lives, sharing Jesus with people, sharing the gospel, you know. And then I also enjoyed the other tracks that he had, Pick Yourself Up and God's House, When I Strut, Dog and the Devil. All of these songs were like kind of catchy songs. And like, I like this guy. Who is this guy? You know, so I wanted to look more into Danny D-Boy Rodriguez. And unfortunately, I was saddened to find out that he was actually murdered in the 90s. You know, I'm like, wow, it kind of sounds like Tupac and all that, you know, Biggie Smalls, you know, these artists that were big and then they got shot, you know. But I was curious to know, though, for him, like, how much of an impact did he make on society as a whole? Because not many people know about him, you know, because one reason is because he's a Christian artist, you know, and a lot of the world don't like Christian music. They like worldly music, right? Music that they can feel good to for their flesh. But, you know, I like more spiritual music. So I wanted to know these following questions. You know, did he leave a legacy, you know, or was he just this one hit wonder guy? You know, he was a one hit wonder kind of artist who was just forgotten and overshadowed by today's contemporary, like, Christian rap, you know, artists. So to begin, I asked Chat GPT, who was Danny D-Boy Rodriguez? And this is what it said.
D-Boy Rodriguez was a Christian hip-hop artist known for his impactful music in the late 1980s and early 1990s. He was one of the early pioneers of Christian rap, blending hip-hop with faith-based messages. His music often focused on themes of redemption, faith, and social struggles, aiming to inspire young people with a positive message. Tragically, D-Boy's life was cut short when he was shot and killed in 1990 at the age of 22. Despite his short career, his influence in Christian hip-hop remains significant, and he is remembered as a trailblazer in the genre. His sister, Jeannie Rodriguez Lopez, continued his legacy in Christian music. His testimony was one of faith, transformation, and a deep desire to reach people with the message of Jesus Christ.
We have a lot of troubled teenagers coming in, and I like to help them out and talk to them.
So he has an interesting story, and we're going to get more into it in this podcast. I do want to start by focusing on where he came from. His mother, Cookie Rodriguez. I did a little bit of study on her life, and she has a testimony herself. Like, wow, she came out of drugs and she committed her life to Jesus. And I'm being a very, very brief testimony of her, because it's not really about her. It's about her son. But basically, she gave her life to Jesus. She went to this program called Teen Challenge in New York. And in that program, it was a ministry. She got closer to the Lord. She moved to Dallas after that. And she picked the toughest neighborhood in Dallas to do ministry work, because she was all in for Jesus. And she's still alive today, by the way. And she's still working today for the Lord. It's just amazing. But anyway, she moved to Dallas, and Danny went with her, and, you know, his sister. And she started actually a school called Street Church Academy. And this is where Danny, as he grew up, he spent most of his time. The name is now called New Life Church. But, and I don't really know much detail about the place, but I would say this, that it was designed for youth, inner city youth, to actually, and mainly those people who had trouble staying in school or who were troublemakers, you know, to actually come and you know, find Jesus, you know, and get close to God. And it was a very impactful ministry, especially during the 90s, that Cookie Rodriguez started. She inspired youth to serve Jesus. And it wasn't just this positive message. It was all about getting their hands dirty, getting in the community, being in their lives. You know, it wasn't just preaching all the time. It was actually being a part of their lives. Now, in regards to Danny D-Boy, you know, when around that time, he was about 20 years old. And the Christian rap wasn't really a popular genre at the time. In fact, rap was still kind of in its early stages. The clip that you saw was in I think it was 1986 at the beginning of the show. And that's when rap was really starting to go off, and Christian rap was especially non-existent almost. The first ever Christian rapper I found was actually this guy named Stephen Wiley. He did a very famous song called Bible Break, and he's basically rapping the Bible. It's pretty cool. His music and the others though at the time were tailored mainly to Christian consumers, like churchgoers or Christian events. It was specific. It was a specific audience. Danny D-Boy, though, as I said in the clip, he's actually considered to be the first Christian hip-hop martyr and also street rapper. What do I mean by that? Well, you see, what I've discovered in my research is that he didn't really he liked the music. He liked Stephen Wiley and everything, but he felt that his type of music wouldn't be accepted, completely on the streets. They would think he's a joke. So what he decided to do was like, you know what? I want to change his music around so I can make it more appealing to the street youth and they can actually hear more about Jesus. So he changed it up a bit. He had actually included fashion to go with it, which is why you see, he dressed in certain ways. But the biggest thing that I've discovered about Danny D-Boy is that he wasn't just a talker. He was actually a doer. He got his hands dirty. He got into the community. He worked the streets. And with that naturally came risk. You had to intermingle with drug dealers. You had to intermingle with junkies and gangbangers, And he was rumored to have lost his life to street violence. But some say it was a carjacking. No one really knows for sure. But he was involved in the streets. Now, his sister, Jeannie Rodriguez, who's still living today, and I had the pleasure of talking to before I started doing this episode, she produced 2 albums, one before he died and one after he died. The one that was before he died was called I'm For Real. It was in 1990. And the background behind that one is that Danny D-Boy convinced her to start rapping with him. And she ended up becoming the first female Christian rapper. And after he passed away, she did do a second album called And Now the Mission Continues in 1991. And there's a notable song there called I Caught the Mic, because Danny D-Boy had a song called Drop the Mic, where he was telling people who were not saying good things about life and rapping about drugs and money, whatever. He said, drop the mic, pretty much, let me pick up the mic and rap about Jesus and positive things. Well, Jenny had a song called I Caught the Mic, because when Danny died, he dropped the mic. So Jeannie wanted to continue his legacy. Jeannie also was the drummer for a lot of his songs, and she was a poet also to help him out with different things regarding maybe he wanted to impress a girl or whatever. He would tell her, hey, can you write me a poem so I can impress this girl with? So it was a funny story that she would share. Danny's third album, Peace to the Poet, was released 3 years after his death in 1993. And then in that one, it includes interviews where he had about certain songs that he made and the background behind those songs. I think those interviews are really good because you see his heart in what he was doing. Jeannie described Danny as an inner city youth minister through and through, who lived it, ate it, and breathed it. And by studying his life, I realized that, wow, this man really was the real deal. So I want to start with this. I want to ask Chat GPT, what was his testimony? And this is what it said.
While there aren't many publicly documented, detailed accounts of his personal struggles, his life and music reflected a powerful testimony of overcoming hardship and using his talents to serve God. Danny was raised in Dallas, Texas, in an area where gang violence, drugs, and crime were common. Many young people around him fell into destructive lifestyles, and he saw firsthand the struggles that came with growing up in that environment. Instead of being pulled into negativity, he chose to use his talents in music to spread a different message, one of faith and hope. Danny was deeply influenced by his faith in Jesus Christ, which became the foundation of his life and music. Instead of pursuing secular hip-hop, he dedicated his rap career to ministry, using his lyrics to share biblical truths and encourage people to turn to God.
So don't turn to sin when things get sour. Call on Jesus in the darkest hour.
He boldly proclaimed that he was not ashamed of the gospel, even when Christian rap was not widely accepted. His mission was to use hip-hop as a tool for evangelism, reaching young people who felt lost or hopeless. He saw music as a way to plant seeds of faith in those who might not hear about Jesus in traditional church settings. His lyrics often spoke about real-life struggles, temptations, violence, and the need for God's grace.
The kids carry Uzis and the 9mm. The only role model is the pimp and drug dealer. They demolish and polish off any rival member. Hey, mom and dad, don't you remember?
Making his testimony relatable to many. Some believe his early death may have been connected to the very communities he was trying to reach. While his life was cut short, his testimony lived on through his music, which continued to inspire many after his passing. His willingness to stand boldly for Christ, even in dangerous places, became a powerful part of his legacy. D-Boy's story is one of dedication and courage, using his voice to make a difference and standing firm in his faith until the very end. His music and testimony continue to influence Christian hip-hop artists and listeners today.
All right, some notable things that we see here is that Danny was actually born in New York, the Bronx, right? And the Bronx was ground zero of the rap culture. You know, if you look up the rap history, you realize that the Bronx was vital when it came to this genre and its nascent beginning. His mother and father, they became Christians. With his mom, like I said, she was a firebrand for Jesus, doing street ministry work. She started Bible studies in her own home in New York, but then she felt led to go to Dallas after being encouraged by Teen Challenge to do more for the Lord. So they moved to Buckner Terrace in East Dallas, and that was one of the roughest neighborhoods. And he moved it on purpose. As the story goes, Cookie, which is again D-Boy's mom, asked somebody what was the roughest neighborhood in Dallas, and they told her, and he said, "Okay, that's where we're going." Basically, that's how it ended up being. She wanted to live within her sphere of influence, and this is where Danny gained much popularity. 1983, Cookie and her husband Demi, who was the father of Danny, who were also again former drug addicts, they started the ministry. Like I said, they started a ministry there called Street Church Academy, and Danny was their first graduate. When it came to Danny and his life story, and when it comes to how he grew up, there's some interviews that are out there that actually were very helpful for me in getting this information. So basically what happened was Danny, when he was in high school, he was really good at basketball, and he would even play on the streets with the children, you know, at the playground or whatever, and they knew Danny because he's good, he can play ball, you know. And this one instant took place where he was in school and he would showcase his rap skills around lunchtime, you know, and I can imagine maybe somebody beating on the table, you know, and then he's rapping and he's giving his raps or whatever. And then one day he got in trouble. He got in trouble because basically he was using his talent to actually slander people. But it was the beginning of him changing his rap from secular to Christian. I have an excerpt of an interview by Jenny Rodriguez where she explains.
In his rap, everybody in school in the cafeteria came around him. Basketball team, football team, everybody, and it was known. So he got home all proud of himself. My mom asked what happened. He was grounded to his room.
Wow.
And he was told, don't you dare come out until you find a way to turn that around and use it for God. Yeah. He pondered it, thought, and came out with the Christian rap. Then he started thinking. And he loved sports, especially basketball.
Yeah.
So later made the choice. He continued to play basketball, but I got to tell you, man, mainly he was known in his high school as a guy that could really rap. He had to stop those dissing rhymes. But mainly then he started to evangelize in his high school using rap. He started to gradually, he would introduce God into it. Yep. He'd pepper it, really, is what he did. You know, a little bit here and there. He didn't overwhelm them. But they started to hear, look, God this, Bible that, the word says this, word says that. And man, before you know it, they were like, they didn't want to eat lunch. They just want to be around Danny Ryman.
Wow.
Danny Ryman all during lunch. And trust me, this was early 80s.
So at some point, Danny decides to drop out of senior year and help his mom with SCA. In this clip here, I have he actually says this on the TV show.
What are the grades there?
Oh, they have from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. And I'm in 12th grade this
year. And
you're
in 12th grade?
Yes. I was going to North Garland High School, and all my friends wanted me to graduate from North Garland this last year. And I said, no, I wanted to go to Street Church and sort of help out, you know, because I knew my parents at first, they would need help with the kids and everything because we have a lot of troubled teenagers coming in, and I like to help them out and talk to them.
So picture this, right? So he's gaining popularity, right? He's helping neighborhood youth. He's playing with them in the basketball courts. He's rapping to them on the streets. So he's gaining popularity, and he's gaining what you call street cred. Okay, he has a name for himself. Now, add to which he goes on this Christian show, as you saw, and on the show he does his performance, and this actually catches the attention later on of a guy named Tim Miner. And Tim Miner was his future music producer. He contacted Danny B-Boy and said, "Whoa, hey, you have talent. Let's see what you can do on the mainstream." So Tim would actually move him from being famous on the streets to somewhat mainstream, amongst being Christian-based audiences. Believe it or not, even churches would contact Danny to do some music performances there, or at least get some tapes by him. And since rap was still kind of new and was not really considered to be Christian, he will be introduced by the congregation as a musical guest. But I would say this, that he was largely accepted at a lot of Christian youth rallies. They loved his music. They loved Danny D-Boy. Now, Danny, he wouldn't call himself a Christian rapper. He would mainly call himself a lyrical street poet. That's kind of heart he had. He wanted to be considered to be somebody that was really, didn't have this tainted image about himself. He wanted to have this talent that he can showcase for the Lord in a clean manner. Now, regarding his death, I was actually inspired by my last episode, the Malcolm X episode, because there was a point when I watched a documentary about who killed Malcolm X, and I thought it was really cool that this guy did not let up until he found out who did it. And in the same way, I'm kind of feeling that way about Danny. I feel like his death was obviously not right. It was unjust. And I feel like, the family deserves to know who did it and whatnot. So I did the best I could to put together the details of what happened so people know, and not just read about him, read that, oh, Danny was shot in 1990, and that's it. No, I want to give more details to people who actually are interested in this topic regarding what happened and everything. So what I decided to do was put together all the information that I know across the different sources that I've come across into a dramatic video form, and this is what I came up with.
In the summer of his death, he held a gun exchange program. If kids turned in guns, he'd buy them tickets to Six Flags. He had a stack of guns turned into Dallas. The night of his death, he had a gang intervention night. He took some youth home afterwards. When he returned to his apartment, he remembered he had to return a movie to Blockbuster. He also had one more youth to drop off. It was already past midnight. He had dropped off the movie and the last youth and returned to the apartment. He goes to the check-in kiosk to open the gate, but then realizes he didn't have his pass. So he goes around to another entrance and rings the bell for his roommate to open the door. The roommate was asleep and didn't wake up to open the gate. Then, at approximately 3:55 a.m., an unknown Caucasian male approaches the car and exchanges words with him. The male then opens fire, shooting one bullet to the passenger side of the vehicle, hitting Danny in the abdomen. Danny quickly pulls out of the area and attempts to get on the entrance ramp to the highway. He may have been trying to get to the hospital since he was a half-mile away. He didn't make it, however, because his car hit a curb and went airborne, crashing through bushes and hitting a streetlight. It flipped in the process, but landed right side up on the road. Paramedics came on scene supposing it was a DUI, but when they realized he was shot, they took him to Baylor Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead an hour later. Per Dallas police, although Danny was severely injured in the crash, he was wearing his seatbelt and the vehicle had proper airbag deployment. It was determined by detectives that it was the bullet that killed him and not the crash. Because he left his wallet at his apartment, the authorities could not identify him. So they had to label him as a John Doe at the city morgue. It would be 18 hours before he could finally be identified as Daniel Dimitri Rodriguez, now known as the first Christian hip-hop martyr.
In this social media craze era, I desire as many people as possible to know about this man and his unjust death, and the risk that he took in the inner city as a Christian rap artist or lyrical street poet. I'll be posting that video on all the major social media platforms, and I'm hoping that it'll go viral, so people are like, okay, let me look into Danny D-Boy, and maybe they'll come across this podcast, who knows. One thing I want to address though was some things that Chat GPT said, the responses. One of the responses that it said was, quote, instead of being pulled into negativity, he chose to use his talents and music to spread a different message, one of faith and hope. Now, I'm a stickler with things, to be honest, so bear with me. I would say this. Danny D. Boy's life is a good case study of how we're not, repeat, not entirely products of our environment. We can choose what to do that is right versus what is wrong. You know, the Bible even talks about this. If we see in Ezekiel 18, 14 to 20, it says, suppose that a sinful son in turn has a son who sees his father's wickedness and decides against that kind of life. This son refuses to worship idols on the mountains and does not commit adultery. He does not exploit the poor, but is instead fair to debtors and does not rob them. He gives food to the hungry and provides clothes for the needy. He helps the poor and does not lend at interest. He obeys all my regulations and decrees. Such a person will not die because of his father's sins. He will surely live. But the father will die for his many sins, for being cruel, robbing people, and doing what was clearly wrong among his people. What do you ask? Doesn't the child pay for the sins of the parents' sins? No, for if the child does what is just and right and keeps my decrees, that child will surely live. The person who sins is the one who will die. The child will not be punished for the parent's sins, and the parent will not be punished for the child's sins. Righteous people will be rewarded for their own righteous behavior, and wicked people will be punished for their own wickedness. So we see here that God is basically saying, you're responsible for your choices. You can't blame anybody else for it. Your sins are your sins alone. You did that. And one thing that really stood out to me about Danny's life is that he grew up in the Bronx. He lived in the urban environment. He was in it, okay? And yet he's using his music to actually do good, to actually make an impact. And he's actually getting more involved. You know, he's resisting the trend at the time to gangbang, to do drugs, you know, and he's using the music. This is another thing. This is what tripped out. He's using the music that they like and turning it into a Christian rap, turn it into a Christian flavor so that he can communicate the gospel better to them, you know. So he was a man, a great case study of a man who did not have to be a product of his environment. He stood above it. 80s and 90s, early 90s and early 90s, people know it was plenty of drugs. This was a drug epidemic at that time. Okay, and gang crime was everywhere. You know, but and then you had the other part of it where you had churches, right? The churches, they shunned anything associated with the lifestyle, right? And this would include the increased popularity of rap and hip hop music. Yet again, Danny D. Boy sees it as a unique opportunity to reach those involved who wouldn't otherwise step in foot inside of a church building. And I thought that was really wild. And I was just thinking about this verse as I'm studying his life. Philippians 1, verses 12 to 14. This is Paul speaking. He says, and I want you to know, my dear brothers and sisters, that everything that has happened to me here has helped spread the good news. For everyone here, including the whole palace guard, knows that I am in chains because of Christ. And because of my imprisonment, most of the believers here have gained confidence and boldly speak God's message without fear. So I want to point out here in this verse how Paul was saying basically, I'm in jail to reach the palace guard. That's basically what's happening right now. You know, because I'm in jail, I'm able to reach people. I'm able to reach my captors, the Romans. You know, and what has it got? What's it got to do with Danny D. Boy? Well, it has everything to do with Danny D. Boy. Why? Because what he's doing is that he's using what people are familiar with, and he's able to reach them better. Otherwise, they wouldn't go into a church building. They stay on the streets. You know, and when it comes to music, you know, let's face it. You know, gangbangers don't listen to hymns. They don't listen to, you know, spiritual songs. You know, no, they listen to the music that they're familiar with, right? Here comes Danny D. Boy. You know what? I'm going to use that music and turn it into something that will actually get their attention about God. I'm going to start speaking God and here and there. Jesus here, Jesus there, Jesus here. And that's what he would do, you know? So I thought that was a genius move, especially early on. Again, when rap was just starting to get its popularity, and it was already getting a bad reputation in the church. He was a trailblazer in that regard. So I see him fighting two battles here. He has people on one side who was criticizing his faith, and is he a real Christian because he's liking rap and hip hop, which is worldly. And then there's the others who were saying, well, his music isn't really that great because it's Christian and it's not secular, and no one's listening to Christian rap and whatever. And so I wanted to ask, what does Chat GPT think? Did he have any critics? I want to hear from there. So this is what it said.
Danny gets behind the mic at a regular studio and basically they tell him, don't rap about God, just rap. And he looked at my friend, stared at the mic and said, I can't do this. I don't care. I don't have money for my rent. I'm eating beans that I heat over the fireplace. I'm just not going to do it.
Yes, he did face criticism during his short but impactful career, mostly because he was a Christian rapper at a time when both the church and the hip-hop world were skeptical of that combination. Some traditional or conservative Christians in the late 1980s and early 1990s were uncomfortable with the use of hip-hop as a ministry tool. Rap music was often associated with rebellion, violence, and secular culture, so D-Boy's bold street-style delivery made some Christians uneasy. He was criticized for the sound, not the message, even though his lyrics were Christ-centered. The medium itself was seen by some as inappropriate for worship or evangelism. On the flip side, the secular hip-hop community often didn't take Christian rap seriously. Some saw it as a soft or inauthentic, questioning whether it had a place in real street culture. Others may have dismissed D-Boy for preaching instead of conforming to the themes of power, money, and fame that were popular in mainstream rap. D-Boy was unapologetic about preaching Jesus through his music. In an industry where subtlety was often more accepted, his direct approach made him stand out, for better and worse. Some critics felt he was too preachy or that his lyrics lacked the complexity of secular hip-hop. But for many fans, that same boldness is what made him powerful and real. Because he ministered in tough neighborhoods and urban environments, some misunderstood or underestimated the seriousness and danger of his mission. Critics may have seen his outreach work as reckless or naive, but those who knew him understood he was willing to risk his life to reach people no one else was reaching. Even with critics, D-Boy stood firm. His courage to do something new, controversial, and Christ-centered helped break barriers. And the same boldness that earned him criticism is what earned him lasting respect. Today, many of those early critics of Christian rap have been replaced by churches, festivals, and fans who embrace it fully, in part because D-Boy helped blaze the trail.
Now, I'd say this. I'm going to be fair. I believe that the people who had issues with Danny, people like Danny, because it wasn't just him, and I'll get into that in a minute, they had some valid concerns. I could understand where they were coming from, because rap and hip-hop wasn't exactly an invention from the Christians, as you saw in the video. If you look at its historical roots, it certainly didn't trace back to Jesus Christ. It wasn't exactly an offshoot of old hymns, right, or spiritual songs, okay? But it was growing. It was a popular thing, and it's like this, guys, the computer, right? Or the cell phone, right? It's here to stay, whether you like it or not, whether you care about it or not. Chat GPT, another thing, it's here to stay, whether you like it or not. I have my own problems with Chat GPT, yeah, but while it's here and people are using it, I might as well use it for the glory of God, which is why I make this podcast. So you gotta adapt with what you got. And regarding the popularity of Christian rap, of rap in general, that was something that was up and coming. How are you gonna reach people now? You're gonna have to figure it out. That's what Danny D had to face, and it was becoming a rapidly a large industry. You had other artists who were using the genre and making it dirty, right? Talking about rebellion, greed, sex, drugs, gang banging, And then you had notable artists, people like NWA, Run DMC, LL Cool J, Public Enemy, Eric B. and Rakim. So it wasn't exactly a good reputation when it came to the genre. However, again, Danny D-Boy, it seems like he saw through this bad rap, and he took advantage of an opportunity, and I commend him for that. He had this verse in mind. I'm pretty sure. I don't know his mind. I wasn't inside of his mind, but I'm pretty sure he thought about this verse in 1 Corinthians 9:22. where it says, to the weak I became weak. This is Paul speaking, that I might win the weak. I have become all things to all men, so that I may by all means save some. I do all things for the sake of the gospel, so that I may become a fellow partaker of it. So, he didn't join a crowd of just straight up condemning everybody that listen to the music, don't even deal with it, don't even touch the music. No, he used it and said, like, listen, if I can become like these people without engaging in the sin and whatnot, I'm sure I can win people over, to Christ. And he wasn't the only one with this thought. But the difference was that it seems like he did a lot more. He actually got more involved. He got into the city. Instead of being like the mainstream churches, and condemning anything else with the music, he turned it for good. Basically what I'm saying. He turned it into good. And it's because of his vision that Street Church Academy became so prominent in the community and why he was well known and respected in the inner city. His mother, Cookie Rodriguez, received a reward from the city because of her involvement. People's lives were changed, and gangs, and this is a crazy thing. Did you know that gangs held a ceasefire? They actually held a ceasefire when Danny D-Boy passed away. You don't believe me? I'll let his sister tell you. Check it out.
Let me tell you, at his funeral, Danny had a rule. If you're coming in our center, don't wear anything that identifies you with the gang. Not a jacket, not a hat, not a rag. Then we pull up, let me tell you, from the door to the ceiling, outside of our facility, every jacket, every rag, every hat, left outside.
Wow.
Left outside.
Wow.
And
Wow.
every gang represented in the city of Dallas who never sat next to each other, who never talked a word to each other, who hated each other and killed people back and forth for generations, were standing hand in hand.
Amen.
And the city of Dallas came to my mom and said, they called a week of peace between them in honor of Danny, and there hasn't been an incident.
Wow.
And one thing they ruled out very quickly, people said, oh, it's gang members, gang members. Man, Danny had so much respect among the gang members that after that week of peace, my mom had to call them in because they were trying to find out who did it with their own methods, which were street methods, and she had they asked her to please talk to them because they're trying to do an investigation, and people were getting hurt out there. And it was never a gang member. They loved him.
So he wasn't trying to make a name for himself. In fact, like I said, he wanted to be called a lyrical street poet, not a Christian rapper. And I guess the good illustration I can use is like this. Like, his intention was to utilize an avenue that the streets were familiar with, and by making it like cross paths with Jesus and his word. He wanted to revamp that avenue to be appealing for people to travel on, so it didn't have potholes or it was just a nice looking avenue to go down, and he would make cross paths of Jesus. Like I said, he wasn't the first to invent Christian rap. It wasn't a new thing at the time. Again, Stephen Wiley was that. He did it in 1985 for Bible Break. However, like I said, he did not think that his music would reach far enough, so he wanted to find ways to make it reach further. Now, he also had some allies, and that was a good thing about Danny D-Boy. He had some allies at the time, people who actually had the same vision that he had, I'm pretty sure. He wasn't a lone ranger, in other words. He had some support. You had people like Michael Peace, who produced 4 albums between 1987 and 1990. Then you had SFC, which is Soldiers for Christ. You had PID, which is Preachers in Disguise. And you had a very popular group called DC Talk. And they all produced 2 albums by 1990. But yet, what actually made Danny stand out among all of them, in my opinion? Again, he was working the streets. He wasn't just rapping it. He wasn't just talking it. He was sacrificing his time, his money, his life in the process, and that's how he ended up becoming the first Christian hip hop or Christian rap, however you want to call it, martyr. So, that to me is really what separates this man from the others at the time. He actually put his life on the line, and he died doing what he loved, died doing ministry work. So I wanted to also ask, Chat GPT, because I was like, gosh, maybe 1 year old or 2 years old by the time of his death. And so I wanted to ask ChatGPT, what was his popular songs? I don't know what was popular, especially back then. And so this is what ChatGPT said.
Danny D. Boy Rodriguez released 2 albums before his tragic death, and several of his songs became well known in the early Christian hip-hop scene. Some of his most popular songs include Pick Yourself Up,
Carry your Bible, the Bible's your sword. Don't turn away, cause you can't afford to swim in sin where sin is found. Cause like a boat that don't float, you'll just drown.
a motivational track encouraging listeners to rise above struggles and find strength in God, Plantin' a Seed, the title track of his debut album.
Where rap is for God and life ain't a game. Doing what you do, don't you feel no shame? Bro, the time is very short. He's coming back soon. The creator of the earth, the stars, and the moon.
Emphasizing the importance of spreading faith and positivity, I'm Not Ashamed, a bold declaration of his Christian faith and his commitment to using rap as a ministry tool. Gotta Be Me, a song about staying true to oneself and one's faith despite societal pressures. J.E.'s U.S., a high-energy anthem proclaiming his love for Jesus and the power of faith. Rock the Show, a fun, upbeat track showcasing his rap skills while delivering a positive message. When I Struggle, a personal song about facing difficulties and relying on God for strength. Rescue Me, a heartfelt plea for God's help, touching on struggles with temptation and hardship. His music combined hard-hitting beats with deeply spiritual lyrics, making him a standout figure in early Christian rap. Even today, his songs are remembered as foundational in the genre.
It's quite appalling how many are falling into the trap that rap has nicked.
Now I have my favorites from him, from his albums. I'm just going to quickly go through what I believe are his best songs to me. One is from this album, from the 1988 album, Planting the Seed. My top 3 of the songs in this album is Planting the Seed. That's number 1. Because it shows, it reflects the heart for evangelism that I have, and it was a strong motivator for me when I go out and preach. I'll blast that song, and I'll pull over, get out, and start sharing Jesus, passing out tracks, with this song playing in my head, And then the next song that I really like was "Pick Yourself Up."
People try to destroy God's plan for you. Keep your eyes on Jesus, cause he is who protects you, guides you, respects you, provides you. When you're lost and hurt, he'll find you. Don't turn to drugs, don't mess with drinking. Man, wake up, what's wrong with your thinking? Call God's name, be strong, stand tall. Shake off the dust when you take a fall.
"Pick Yourself Up," I believe, is a very good song, unique song. It's not all just Christianese. It's a song for just a well-rounded audience, just encouraging people. And he explains that in the interview about it. Like, he's just to encourage people, man. Like, people been dealing with all the kind of stuff every time, and he's just trying to tell them, look, it's okay, just get back up, right? The third one that I like is called "Dog and the Devil."
Listen, party people, cause I will go be on time, no question. I am confessing, God is number 1, Satan is less than. And I owed her, drink a little soda, speak him a rhyme. Cause I told the boys in the crew, just be ready. Now take your hands and cut it steady.
I mainly like this song because because of the beat, the rhythm. I thought it was pretty cool, I could listen to it on repeat for hours. I would say this, and this is just my opinion, I have a pet peeve when it comes to certain music, Christian music, and that is when we are talking about what we're going to do to the devil. I believe that we need to make sure that we keep Jesus in the center, and Holy Spirit in the center. I just keep thinking, and I say that because I just keep thinking about this verse in in Jude chapter 1, verse 9 and 10, where it basically says, but Michael the archangel, when he disputed with the devil and argued about the body of Moses, did not dare pronounce against him a railing judgment, but said, the Lord rebuke you. But these men revile the things in which they do not understand, and the things which they know by instinct, like unreasoning animals. By these things they are destroyed. So for me, it's like, okay, we got to be careful, how we talk about the devil, how we talk about it. And I get it. he's the enemy. You know, he for those who are believers in Jesus, he is the enemy. But we don't understand the spiritual realm and how that all works. And this verse here tells me I need to be more mindful of what I say about him and whatnot. But that's a side note. It's not a big deal. I don't think it's a sin, whatever, but it's just something I have a pet peeve. Like, I can't do that. You know, I'm just going to say the Lord, Jesus does this, Jesus does that, Jesus does this, not me. So, but yeah, my next runner-up song, I guess you can call it, that I liked from the album was called Church Hoppers.
Because they hop from church to church. They're real flaky people. You can always see them hopping from steeple to steeple. Church hoppers are actors. I know this is true. They act like they need you and your money too. They don't leave the church until they've had their fill. They leave you stuck with no money and a large phone bill.
And this song was a bold song because it's talking about a subject that's not really talked about in Christianity today, but it's something that does need to be addressed, and that is how people hop from church to church, how they don't really stay put, you know. And I'm glad that D-Boy did this song, you know, and it's still something that happens today, you know. It's like, I always wonder, like, what are you looking for? Like, what else are you looking for? If you find, you know, people say, oh, you can't find the perfect church, right? Okay, sure. You can say that, but if you don't find one, how about you make it one? You know, how about you get involved and change what you see that's wrong? You know, don't just keep moving. But that's just me. The next album that he had was called The Lyrical Strength of One Street Poet, 1990. And my top 3 for that one is Slackness. Number 1 is Slackness.
Boy, oh boy, that T. Yo, my brother, drop the MIC. You should run, kid, you're too redundant. I'm the one kid to flow abundant. On arrival, you know that I will pack a Bible for survival. Read the pages, rock the stages, make the brothers drop the gauges. Critics babble, I flow in parable. Words I write crushed on the gravel. They all question my profession, man, go reach stones, that's my suggestion.
This was a hard-hitting beat. Pushing believers to work, using God's power. Like, stop being slack, get out there, preach the gospel, do things for Jesus, you know. And I love that song. Last Days is my next one.
Like a thief in the night, when least expected, the Lord will appear. Burger bars won't protect it. No way, there's nothing that you can do. Tell me what you're gonna do when he come for you. God did it before with a whole lot of water.
I really enjoy the subject of the return of Christ. I don't think it's talked about much. And that song, you know, Danny D-Boy talks about it, you know, the last days and about Jesus coming back. And so if you can put that into a rap song, that's a bonus points for me. So yeah, that was a really good song. The third one that I like was God's House.
Get on the floor, let me hear ya. Oh, yo, it appears you're having fun. No, we can't do that. Oh, no. Psych, I already knew that. I won't stop or drop my speaking. This Puerto Rican's always seeking. Jump.
It mixes house music with Christian rap, which is really interesting. Wow, you know? So I thought that was impressive. Now, the runner-up for that album for me was Drop the Mic.
Cause I'ma do your thing. God is the source for all the music, of course. The boast no remorse, hit the music of yours. Lay the mic down gently. No back talk, just walk. God sent me. Your raps are bald. They have no traction. Around the 6 digits and your raps a fraction.
It's a diss to worldly rappers. And funny story, I was listening to it one day and my son was like, why is he saying drop the mic? That's not nice, you know? And I was explaining to him, he's telling people, he's basically saying, those rappers who are rapping bad things, drop the mic and let me get on it because I want to rap about the things that matter, you know? So I just thought that was funny. So let's ask the question of this episode. Did Danny D-Boy leave a lasting legacy? Chat GPT, what do you think?
Yes, Danny D-Boy Rodriguez left a lasting legacy, particularly in the realms of Christian hip-hop, urban ministry, and faith-driven outreach. Even though his life was tragically cut short, his influence is still felt today. D-Boy was one of the first artists to blend hip-hop with strong Christian messages. At a time when Christian rap wasn't widely accepted, either in churches or the mainstream, he helped lay the foundation for the genre's growth. Artists like T-Bone,
Cause the answer is not guns and the happiness ain't funds, and the answer you're all seeking is found in the one son that came to sacrifice everything, even his own blood. He laid down his life so you'd experience real love.
Lecrae,
Waste my life, no, I gotta make it count. If Christ is real, then what am I gonna do about everything in Luke 12:15? Out of 21, you really gotta go and check it out.
and Trip Lee.
I know that I'ma suffer that alone, it make me tougher. Death is just a doorway to take me to my faithful lover. The lover of my soul's with me. You can shake the brother, but you never knock me down and take me under. Bring the thunder.
Followed in his footsteps, building upon what he started. His 2 albums, Plantin' a Seed 1989 and The Lyrical Strength of One Street Poet 1990, continue to be remembered by fans of early Christian rap. Songs like Shey Is US and Pick Yourself Up and I'm Not Ashamed carried messages of faith, perseverance, and redemption that remain relevant today. D-Boys. Music spoke directly to young people struggling with gang violence, drugs, and brokenness. He proved that faith in Jesus could offer hope and transformation, and his authenticity made him relatable to those in tough situations. His sister, Jeannie Rodriguez Lopez, carried on his legacy in Christian music, and his family remained committed to ministry. His death didn't silence his message, it only made it more impactful. D-Boy was unashamed of the gospel, using his music to preach openly about Jesus at a time when it wasn't popular to do so in hip-hop culture. His fearlessness continues to inspire Christian artists today. His tragic murder is a sobering reminder of the risks that come with ministering in difficult environments. His willingness to reach people in dangerous places has inspired others to continue the mission of spreading hope where it's most needed. Though Danny's career was short, his impact on Christian rap and urban outreach is undeniable. He paved the way for future artists, and his message of hope through Christ continues to inspire generations. His legacy is one of courage, faith, and a deep passion for reaching the lost through music.
Pay the price and that's twice as nice.
You know, I have my own answer for this question, and I think there's 4 different ways he's left a lasting legacy. So I believe, if you don't know by now, that I believe that he has made a lasting legacy. The first way he made a lasting legacy was by Christian rap today. He was a pioneer in bringing Christian rap to the actual streets. He was considered by many Christian rap artists today to be the first Christian hip-hop martyr. You know, they have mad respect for Danny D-Boy, his family, you know, and his impact that he has made to the Christian rap community. The second way that he's made a lasting legacy is through Street Church Academy. Street Church Academy is still around today. You can actually find it in Texas. It still exists today. Cookie is still working with the inner city youth, and she uses her son's story to inspire the youth. So, you know, I don't know how many people have gone through Street Church Academy, but, you know, his name is actually on the building, you know, D-Boy. So you're going to hear about his story and be inspired, I will believe. The third way is through his sister, Jeannie Rodriguez Lopez. Here's a clip from the Legacy Conference. It wasn't the one I was at, but a later one where she was given a recognition. Her and the family were given recognition by the people who did the conference, you know. And one thing about the Legacy Conference, it's a big conference of Christian people who love hip-hop, spoken word, or whatever. And so they all got to hear his story. And so this is a clip from that event.
It's overwhelming, man, to see where raps come, spoken word, all these things. And he wasn't a artist that used rap to entertain. He was an inner city youth pastor that saw the music was drawing the kids. You know, the journey here has been a long one. Literally, by plane from Dallas, it was a couple hours. But by years, it's been 30 years for us in the Christian rap industry. And if you were standing here today, he'd actually struggle to take the attention and the accolades. He viewed himself as a simple inner city youth pastor. And you know what he did? He moved to be closer to the kids that we worked with. And it was there that it was a random act of violence. I think maybe an attempt to carjack him. That one bullet took his life. And we're working with kids that brag, I've been shot 5 times, 8 times. And one bullet through the passenger side of his car. But you know, I had the honor of picking him up the night that he finished his last album. He mastered it, and I pick him up, and I'm mad. It was 3 in the morning, and I'm like, really, Danny? And he loads those turntables, Techniques, 1200, still got them, and he loads them into the trunk. And he said, if anybody ever want to hear what I have to say, said it. And so a couple things I just want to leave you with is, one, have you? He was 22 when he died, and you know, I struggled with why, you know, how, and then God told me he could. There's 80-year-olds that haven't done yet what they're supposed to do here. Or said what they're supposed to say yet. and I lost my nerdy brother Danny. And I just didn't think there was coming back from that. But I can tell you one thing for sure, it has stripped me of living for here.
And I say, obviously, the fourth way would be through me. You know, I have been inspired by Danny D. Boy. You know, his life story has really been something that really blows my mind. You know, so, you know, and for me, you know, with like in Christian hip hop and old school music, I came across him and realized how much of an impact he made, and that inspired me to do more for ministry, going out and share my faith. So, you know, he's impacted me in a certain way as well. So, and I'm doing this podcast. It's another thing, you know, that I'm hoping will reach far and wide, so people know about this guy even more. You know, and he died way back in 1990, so he's been dead for quite some time now, but he's still being honored today. Time for the last word.
The last word.
I want to show you some YouTube comments that I came across that I thought were very powerful comments regarding his life and everything. One comment that I saw in a video by a guy named DW Music 07 says, so glad to have been so close to D-Boy. I was also privileged to be not only friends, but co-production of his projects. We laid the scratches, beatbox tracks, and added keyboard melodies. Just weeks before the tragedy, I'd had him come to our youth camp, our church in Rockwell, as guest artist. After the service, we walked the campgrounds. He and I talked about our friendship. Randomly, he said, hey bro, if the time comes, I want you to sing at my funeral. I was shocked because I'm older than him. I said, what? He said it again. I said, of course. The artists I work with, our staff, and I stood in amazement at the people around us in the gym at Street Church Academy, where the funeral was held. Surrounded shoulder to shoulder, standing room only, were Dallas police officers and small groups of at least 3 to 4 different local gangs, all in his honor. And as God was being glorified and the gospel clearly shared. Wow. To me, that's a mind-blowing testimony from this guy regarding Danny D. Boy. It's like he knew, it seemed like he knew he was going to die young. And to me, he fulfilled his purpose. He did what he was supposed to do on earth. Here's another comment that I saw here. This guy named XX Mr. Freezy XX. This guy used to be my best friend when I was a child. I've never known a worse pain as a child because he was like my older brother. It took me a long time to realize that God had other plans, but I relived those days in my heart. And another one below it, one Joey's mama said, I am still haunted by the fact that in months prior to his murder, D-Boy asked me to go keep company with him in studio while he mixed lyrical strength. Losing him is a pain none of us will ever forget. His father performed my wedding, and his family continues to bless me daily. And one more I want to share was it's mainly not a testimony, but something that he actually rapped. I remember he rapped this. I'm like, wow, oh yeah, he did say this. This guy pointed it out, Gary Ferris 4177. He said he's actually quoting D-Boy's lyrics. It's too late, I'm in this mess. I stick out my chest. I gotta win this fight out here. I don't joke like a prankster. I was born in the barrio and I'll die like a gangster. And he says, rest in peace, D-Boy. And it's like, wow, he did die like a gangster. He wasn't a gangster, you know what I mean, though, but he died like gangbangers would die. He got shot, you know. And again, it's prophetic, you know, he actually got shot. But again, his life wasn't in vain. Obviously not. And I want to share this one final thing about him and leave the rest to you and your judgment. I had the privilege of talking with Jeannie Rodriguez Lopez, and she shared with me a story regarding Danny D. Boy that not many people know about. He actually adopted one of the youths that he worked with. It's blind. It's a foster kid. The story goes, there was a youth whose parents moved to Florida, and apparently he didn't want to go to Florida, so he just stayed back. But being so young, he had to stay in school. He had to have some type of, grounding, some type of parental network that he's a part of. So to keep him in school, Danny adopted him as a foster son. He was only 3 years older than him, and this guy's name was Wimpy. That's what he went by. But if you look at if you listen to one of his songs, the song called "Shout," you make me want to shout, throw my hands up and shout, right? You'll hear in the background this goofy voice, and that is the kid that he adopted. So just a fun story to share with you about him and his life. But what say you though? What say you? You know, did he leave a lasting legacy in your opinion? Did this episode inspire you to leave one? You know, what did you get out of it? These are things I want to leave you with. And yeah, it's like I said, it was an amazing story to behold with his life, and he's done a lot, and I'm sure he's in the kingdom, and he's done his job. But what about you? Next episode, we are going to be talking about this guy.
Hey, it's okay, Doc.
You're safe.
Come on, Doc.
Thank you for watching, everybody. I really appreciate your time. I do not take it lightly. Please, if you can, rate the podcast. Check out my other podcasts, Practical Discipleship, Kingdom Minded Family. In Practical Discipleship, I'm done with season 1. I will be picking that back up, God willing, in the fall. For now, enjoy the episodes I put out there. If you have any questions, email me, text me, email me at restoredkingdom315@gmail.com. Or you can text me at 312-879-0499. Again, 312-879-0499. And I will see if I can address it at a later episode. Okay? God bless you all. And hey, make a legacy.
Deep in my heart, put your work down deep in my heart. Let it light up my path in the dark. Pull me back when I'm going too far. No more trusting in what I could do. I'm just trusting in all that you are.